Hey everybody, welcome back to NikkiT.live. It's been a minute. I think last time I was about a month ago, I was hanging with Dev Agrawal and we were talking about Solid 2.0. But yeah, we're back. I'm hanging out with my buddy Santosh. Santosh, how you doing today?
How are you, Nick?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Just like we were chatting before, I don't get stressed out about live streaming in terms of like hanging out, live coding and all that. The thing that always stresses me out, and I have it all automated, but we ran into some hiccups before this stream that your audio was echoing. So I was like, it's not completely fixed my setup for that. I don't know what changed, but everything is working. Um,
Oh,
I see Anthony over on YouTube. Just if you want to confirm, Anthony, just let me know that you can hear Santosh before we go an hour and a half chatting. And then it's like, yeah, we heard absolutely nothing, but it looked amazing.
yeah.
Anyways, cool. I'm sure he'll chime in a sec. There's a delay on YouTube always. But yeah, Santosh, for folks who might not know who you are, maybe a quick little like, who is Santosh?
Question. Hey everyone, Santosh here. So I live in I tell people like I live in Hamburg, but actually I don't live in Hamburg. It's the nearest city for me. Nick has been to my house just
Yeah.
last month,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Thanks again for the invite.
yeah. Thanks for joining. So I live near Hamburg, which is another state called Niedersachsen or Lower Saxony, and Uh, I've been in Germany for like 4.5 years now. I earlier I was working for a company called Celonis, where I was a staff
Mhm.
engineer, and this year, uh, start of the and last year or end of the last year, I decided to move on, and this year I joined CodeRabbit. Now I work as a principal developer advocate there. Uh, so I've been working in tech for close to 18 years now. I think me and Nick are pretty old. We both
Yeah.
started way back in 2000s.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and what else? Yeah, and then of course, like I have known Nick since 2020. I think uh, we did a stream together back in 2020. I think when I was in India,
Yeah.
around Angular. Yeah, and that's how we got connected on X, and then we both are GitHub stars, so we got the chance to meet at Universe as well. And then I'm a GTE for Angular. I also am Microsoft MVP. So, and then yeah, I love open source. I think that's why we all are here. Like we all are
Yeah.
connected because of open source, the common love.
Yeah, no, big fan of open source as well. Even in the age of AI, I think open source is still important. Obviously, things have changed a bit there. We can probably get into that. I'm sure we will. But yeah, yeah, no, I still laugh at the live stream we did. Not because the live stream was comical, but
Brandon.
uh, yeah, Brandon Brandon Roberts of analog JS fame and my old coworker at Open Sauce. He just cracked me up because we were live streaming and Santosh was just demoing. I think you were showing some new stuff in Angular, and then you went to go compile, and for whatever reason it was just like perfect timing. Your screen froze at the same time that you ran ng compile, and then Brandon was trolling and he's like, oh, he was like Santosh compile or something. So anyways, it still makes me laugh when I think about it, but anyways. Yeah, so yeah, I guess, yeah, you've had an interesting journey in tech too. We've kind of done like a lot of web development, and I was more like on the React side, and I've done full stack as well. Um, you were an Angular now, and then like I mean, you still do some Angular, I think, but you're like right now you're at a company called CodeRabbit, and I guess for folks who might not be familiar with it, I see CodeRabbit everywhere all the time, but like I guess maybe give people a heads up of I guess what CodeRabbit is and like what are you doing over there these days?
So CodeRabbit is code review company. It was the first company actually which started doing code reviews, like automated AI code reviews back in
Okay.
2024 when it was very small. And then we are growing really fast now, and I joined this year to help with the open source ecosystem because it's open source is a big part of CodeRabbit. We love open source. We love to give it back to open source. And last year, when CodeRabbit did Series B, so they allocated $1 million to open source. So that was like, okay, we will be like distributing this 1 million among all the open source projects.
Okay.
And then I joined actually the team to work on like expanding our open source reach, see like we can work with more open source maintainers, people or teams, or the maintainers who need funding, work with them. There are
Mhm.
maintainers who also need code review tool because of AI, right? I mean, there are so many PRs now being opened. Someone needs to review it. So
Yeah.
that's what I do right now. And then, of course, going to conferences is a part of it as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, we've definitely seen each other at like some conferences too. And I guess, like kind of what do you see? Well, we can talk about community in a bit too, obviously, but I guess kind of what are you seeing with code review these days? Because like for myself, like when I guess my first encounter with AI was like ChatGPT probably and Copilot in VS Code, tab completions, all that. And then I remember seeing some extensions come out with like they could generate tests and stuff. And then I'm not sure if did CodeRabbit start doing code review before Copilot? I can't remember. Or maybe
Copilot,
the
I think it was still like 2024, right? I think uh, Copilot was really late into the agentic thing, right? If you remember, like Copilot was just doing autocomplete, and then
yeah,
suddenly Cursor came, and then they came up with the idea of having an agent where it can just like go through your entire code base, create files, you know, uh, change the code across multiple files,
yeah,
and that was like that was pretty 2024, or that was early 2025.
okay,
But
yeah,
Code Rabbit came around 2024, before this all auto completion came, or by when we had just autocomplete, I think, because Code Rabbit was doing code reviews, so it was just going through your code base and trying to run in the agentic loop. We
yeah.
did sandboxes way before it became fancy, actually. So
Okay.
Code Rabbit, yeah.
I
So
I didn't realize you're doing sandboxes as well. I mean, I guess probably well at this point probably everything should and is in a sandbox or should be soon if it's not. It's like that's there's definitely lots of people doing sandboxing. Like I've seen like in the Kubernetes world, there's the agent sandbox, there's stuff like Daytona, there's various solutions out there, but yeah, it's one of those I don't know. This is agentic in general, not just code review, but it's like it's kind of funny that we have these super powerful, like not everybody obviously, but like typically for work you get a MacBook, and it's kind of funny how we're saying a lot of the work should just go off your computer or somewhere else. So it's like your super, powerful Mac all of a sudden is just like a dumb terminal to some degree. It kind of cracks me up a bit. Yeah.
so buy a $3,000 Mac just to run your agents, and then which run somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I bought this expensive Mac so I could SSH somewhere else.
True.
But that said, there's like I think like I know there's Apple containers now as well. I saw that
Mhm.
project is like I don't know how long it's been out, but it came on my radar a couple months ago. And actually, Windows as well. I think WSL is having native sandboxes coming too. So there's like I I don't know. I mean, it makes sense because like I know even like OpenClaw, for example, like Microsoft is integrating that. I'm not sure if it's directly in Windows yet, or that's I know they're talking about doing that, but I can't remember if it's actually in Windows yet or not. But it's yeah, I don't know. It's interesting wild times, I guess. But I I guess what are you seeing in terms of like in your own repos as well as like just like from maybe feedback you get from customers? Because like obviously there's a few things. There's like, because we were talking about open source before. We've experienced this as well at work at Pomerium, where people submit things and they're clearly slop PRs or issues. Like we do security software, so it's like, I think not everybody, but like we've gotten some things where it's just like clearly they used AI and didn't really dig into this too much. They just said like probably scan this repo and generate like an issue for a security issue, which it may or may not be. You know what I mean? It's like, uh, but like there's that, and then there's this, like the classic, as we call them these days, slop PRs. I guess, what are you seeing with, I guess, yeah, in your own projects and at work, like from feedback from users? I'm curious, like, are most people having a huge problem with this, or is this something CodeRabbit can actually flag immediately and say like, this is clearly a slop PR? Or I don't know. That was a lot of questions in one question. Sorry.
When it comes to open source, I think when CodeRabbit launched and then we started giving it for free for a lot of open source projects, a lot of people loved it. Bun, one of the most famous project, Bun also uses it. They still use
Okay.
CodeRabbit. Yeah. And Nuxt, and there are so many projects among Vue.js ecosystem, they are still using it.
Okay.
Around, and then it's still free, right? So anyone can, whoever has an open source repository or open source project, they can just install it and they get like pretty good limit.
Mhm.
Like it's the same, it's the first thing is, of course, it's the same product. So it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, you're an open source, you're getting a different module. So it's the same product they get, and with higher limits. So most of them, if you are not doing like 100 of PRs per minute or
Mhm.
maybe per day, then you will never hit the limit because with like the problem with giving stuff for free nowadays is also it being getting abused, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if you give it for free and then we don't set any limit, people will just abuse it to do weird shit. So we do have some limit for open source, but for enterprises, we don't want that limit because we don't want them to stop. So of course
Yeah.
there is another for enterprises they get higher limit and then based on that. But still, like I haven't, so apart from few projects like who are which are really active, I never hear people complaining about the limit stuff. Uh,
Okay.
but I see still like some open source maintainers, so I'm hitting the limit, and but they know like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, I'm also getting it for free, so it's
Yeah. Exactly.
and
No, yeah, for sure. That's, yeah. If it's
and then
free, there's different. Yeah.
about like uh, flagging the AI slop, we do something. So it's like we actually created, we added a functionality to actually spam, like mark a PR as a spam in case we figure it out. But it's like an incremental process. We have to go back and see like if it's a real issue or not. I mean, we don't want to actually flag anything as an AS log, otherwise
Yeah.
it will be a problem. So maybe we still need to maybe do some work there to see like if it's a really AI log or not. But I've seen some maintainers actually using some other ways to do this.
Mm.
For example, I think I was speaking to people from Nuxt, Daniel Rowe, uh,
Okay. Yeah.
and then they have another website actually where you can enter the username. I don't know. It's somewhere on Discord. I still remember. I don't remember the the website name, but
Okay.
which can tell you like once you enter the username of an user, it can tell you if this user is actually using just AI to do PRs because
Okay.
a human being cannot do 100 PRs. I mean, Nick, we both have done open source contributions. I know, and
Yeah.
for me, if it's a like a lot of work, I mean, probably I will do a one PR a week because
Yeah.
once I open the PR, I also need to make sure that it gets merged. I just don't want to blindly go ahead and open the hundreds of PRs in 100
Yeah.
repository and nothing gets merged. So that's how they actually do that. Like see like how what person is doing, and based on the past activity, they figure out if this person is an AI or he's using or she's using an AI agent to actually open the PRs. So
Okay.
there are multiple ways people are doing it, but I think yeah, we will also try to add more functionality like into Code Rabbit itself, so it can flag more AI slops.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I haven't we haven't really received a ton of AI slop stuff, and like we use AI every day, or not necessarily everybody at work. Um, I think some people are coming around to it, but they're just exploring the waters. But I typically am using it every day, and we have stuff like we have an AI disclosure, for example, like in our PR template that because like most of the time, especially when it's like easy fixes or stuff where like you know i I mean, I obviously chat with with my agent to figure out, okay, this is what we got to do, okay, sounds good, and then I commit it, and I typically will say like, or I have some rules to say co-author it with the model I was working with, and then the ask at work is basically one, disclose if you're using AI or not, and then the other is like a lot of times I'll be like, I don't know, I'll be like, Claude Sonnet generated this entire PR. I'll say like I reviewed all the code, and tested it or whatever, etc. And even sometimes like even if an issue is created, we'll say like, generated by, and um, I guess like the thing with our manager is, oh, hey, how's it going, Mike? Good to see you. Um, yeah, I think the ask from like engineering really is just, don't pretend you weren't using it, which sounds obvious to say, but like, just try and explain as best as possible how you used it. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it generated everything, then I reviewed it, or a lot of times I'll be like, I've been using Devin as well. So I'll be like, Devin with GLM 5.2 did most of this, but then I did some manual edits, like, obviously you don't need to write this like huge novel to to say how you used it, but just, I guess just enough disclosure to say like, you know, I had help here and this is kind of what the help was. So, but uh, but that said, it's also interesting. I was hanging with Roselle Scarlett, who's over at Entire now,
Yeah.
and I find what they're doing really interesting because there's the Git part still, but you can bring in all the conversations you had. So like, and then you basically, I think they're called checkpoints, not snapshots, and the checkpoint is essentially like it's kind of like a snapshot, like this at this point in time, these were the conversations I had and these were the commits also that brought me to this specific point in time. And I think going that route kind of makes sense, but we were talking about it because like you've worked in open source for a while as too, but like how like maybe when you first started contributing you were a little intimidated maybe, or like everybody's gonna see my ugly code or something like that, and you kind of have to get over that. And also realistically, I don't think anybody is literally going through every piece of code I write and commit all the time anyways. But
Yeah.
um but we were when chatting with Roselle, it was like the code's one thing now, but now it's like, oh, I don't want people to see my prompts, kind of what I asked, and I think it's kind of similar to, like that, oh, I don't want people to see my code when like I started doing open source, because like sometimes, I don't know, I mean, sometimes I'll ask questions that might be obvious, or like there's stuff I don't know, and I guess maybe there's that reflex to be like, oh, I don't want to look like I don't know anything, but I don't know, we'll see how it plays out, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. I think, yeah, that actually opens an interesting conversation, right? I think, look, in what I think is now no one is actually writing code by hand, even most open source projects, right? I mean, even the
Yeah.
maintainers are actually just using AI because they know like what they are supposed to do,
Yeah.
and but you know. this is one thing I don't like about those maintainers, that they are closing down the repository saying, hey, we will not accept any PR from any AI agent.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is, I mean, to me, basically, it doesn't make sense. Like, if you are doing it and someone who, let's say, learns to do stuff and then uses
Mhm.
an AI to, of course, like, write a good PR, what's the problem?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like I know like the only high profile one I can think of recently was cal.com. So that was open
Mhm.
source. And then they had that blog post about how they're going closed source because they don't want to basically get hacked with their security and stuff potentially. But it's like, think of like the curl project, like Daniel, who's I think the only person that still works on that project. Maybe there's some other contributors, I honestly don't know, but like curl is like one of the most widely used tools, or like TLS, and those things are all open source, right? And they got better because of them being open source. So like I think for sure, like having AI and stuff like Fable or Mythos, like they were talking about, or maybe even GPT 5.6 that just came out, like it can expose more things quickly. Like, hey, there's, a security loophole here or something. But I guess once again, it's just maybe there'll be a more rapid increase of finding issues, but like, don't we want to fix those security issues anyways? Like I get the whole like maybe people like malicious actors are bombarding like things where they can find out the vulnerabilities quicker, but I still think going the open source route, it makes a lot of sense. And also it's like when you're using tools like when I'm asking questions, like our core product is open core, so like
Mhm.
when I'm asking questions about it, I mean, I work here so I would have access to the private repo anyways, but like people can ask questions and like it can actually go look in the Pomerium source code, you know what I mean, like in the core. So and I had the same experience when, like, even before AI, like I remember I don't know, because like at one point I was always the person configuring Webpack where I worked. I don't know why, but and I remember running into issues and I was like, why is this config not working? And then like it didn't seem obvious at the time, but then I was like, oh, I've got the source code. Like I'm just gonna pull down Webpack, run it locally, and I'm gonna step through code or like I'm gonna even look for that error I got and see where it is in the actual source code, and then I put breakpoints. And so like I still think there's a lot of value in open source, like even if security issues get raised quicker potentially with AI, but you know,
So about the finding the security vulnerabilities, right? I mean, people think like that's easy, but believe me, it's not. And
yeah,
if Fable or whatever model needs to actually go through your repository and find a vulnerability, it's like a lot of tokens, a lot of money. So
hmm,
if you're thinking like any random like newbie can find like a security vulnerability and expose it or maybe abuse it, believe me, he needs to be crazy rich, or the person needs to be crazy rich to do that.
yeah,
So it's not that easy, and that's what I'm saying, because um, running running like all the security or finding security vulnerabilities, it's like it needs to run for a few hours. Just
hmm,
think about like running expensive model like Fable in loop for 6 hours, maybe.
yeah,
Just think
yeah,
about cost, and it also depends on the repository, right? That the bigger the project, it will take more time, but it's crazy expensive. Just to let you know that, okay, that's not that easy to do that. But we
yeah,
also know that if all maybe a lot of this, you know, this uh, this threat actors or maybe the people who want to abuse this, they have money as well, probably.
yeah, yeah. No, there is a real cost to it. Like that's a whole other thing with AI. Like, and I kind of wonder, like, for people starting off, because like I gave a talk at I forget what it was called. I can link to it, but there was this organization that reached out to me, and I was just talking about,
Mhm.
um, you know, how do people learn these days in the age of AI? Like I'm like not even in tech, like just in general, you know what I mean? Because you're gonna have to leverage AI in whatever you do for work most likely. You know, it's not just programmers. And you know, that whole like, you know, when you learn something, you know, you're like, oh, I don't get it, I don't get it, and your brain, you know, it doesn't physically hurt necessarily, but you're like, I don't get it. And then all of a sudden you have that aha moment, and then it's like at that point you never forget it again, because you're like, okay, I get it now. And the thing with AI is like you can just short circuit that and just say like, just give me the answer. So like obviously I, I use AI as a learning tool as well, but it's like we've been in the industry longer than some others, so like we have experience as well already. But like for somebody starting off, there's probably that pressure at a company where like, okay, well, we have AI here, so we're expecting you to be that 10x or 100x engineer now, and you're still trying to learn at the same time. So it's like I think there's I don't have the like the best answer for what's the balance there, but like you kind of have to, as a newer person in the industry, kind of thread that needle of, yes, I got to leverage AI, but I also either need to learn from it or still learn on my own as well, you know, like because short term, like you could probably go far, but then like at some point it's like I have no idea what I'm doing. I just chat GPT told me, or you know, Claude Code or whatever, you know. So it's I'm curious about your thoughts there.
Uh, so the first part which you started with, like, that's really true. Like, I still remember, like, I was doing .NET before. So if you're not aware, like before I started doing Angular, I was .NET guy.
Yeah.
So like most of us, right? So uh, I remember like when middlewares actually launched, where like middlewares came to .NET, and I was
Mhm.
like breaking my head to understand like what is this shit like. I read like multiple blogs. I went through the docs and I was like, no, I don't understand this. And
Yeah.
then I just gave it up. I was like, okay, go to hell. And then I went to Node.js. I started doing JavaScript most of the time. And I was going through Node.js and came across Express because that was the earliest framework available, right?
Yeah.
For writing backend code. And then I came across middleware again. And I was like,
Oh
wow,
yeah.
this is easy. Is this the middleware? Like what
Yeah.
.NET was trying to do? And that was a year after. Like
Yeah.
I'd left .NET and then I was like, okay, and then came to this world. So this is how most of us learn. And then I never forgot like what middleware is. Like now I can have, of course, if I see the code, I'll be like, oh, this is the middleware actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Exactly.
the thing is about like this is a difficult question to answer, as you also mentioned. Like I was at React Amsterdam, and we were at part of the panel discussion where we were discussing about like the future of software engineering, and we are like, look, everyone is trying to figure things out. The
Hmm.
way AI is, uh, you know, growing, or maybe the entire AI thing is growing, or growing so fast. It's like hard to like figure out, okay, what should I be doing right now? So everyone is, in my experience, everyone is trying to figure it out. Like, okay, what's next? I mean, think about the time where people were actually just writing prompts and then said,
Yeah.
okay, now we don't need to write prompts. Now use loop. I was like, what the heck is loop now? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
let me write my prompts. Then prompts became smaller because people started writing your instructions, right? So they started putting things into agents.md, GitHub instructions.md. Before that, like people used to give entire context. Someone actually
Mhm.
tweeted about, hey, do you remember the time where you used to tag the file name? And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I do remember that. And that was, believe me, that was not 5 years ago. That was
Yeah.
not 5 years ago. That was 2025.
Yeah.
And like, it's so fast. Like, of course, the experience you have earned is not going anywhere. Like,
Hmm.
even to talk with an AI or to actually put all the instructions or create your skills.md or wedges.md, whatever file you have, they come from experience, right? I mean, let's say there are so many skills.md or maybe uh, instructions.md file you can find in hundreds of repository across, but they also come from the experience, like experience which you have gathered by working on multiple projects, right? Multiple enterprise projects. You
Yeah.
know what needs to be done, and then you do that. So I think experience is becoming, more and more important. I'm
Mhm.
just concerned about people who are just blindly trusting AI, not questioning it. You
Yeah.
know, I have still seen code where like AI. I mean, I try to use with the best models possible. I mean, I try to mostly use Opus or maybe GPT 5.5,
Mhm.
but still they generate some shitty code as like, okay, why is this? Like, why do we have
Yeah.
this code? And then you ask them, and then they're like, oh, okay. I mean, this is not needed. So
Yeah.
don't need to trust AI blindly. Just treat it as an another engineer, like who where you have to have or teach have a moment where you teach and learn from each other.
Yeah.
So
No, that's
more
really
and
great.
more people are dropping that. Like they are just seeing, oh, let's see like what cloud says, or let's say what ChatGPT says. And oh, this is the answer. I mean, don't do that, please.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And a lot of times too, it's like, I mean, for stuff I'm super familiar with, like, I know how to write a React component. I'm pretty proficient in TypeScript. And so, like, I'm okay. Like, I don't want to write a lot of that stuff anymore. Like, I know how to build a React component. I'm going to just say, scaffold me this. And like, typically, right now for the stuff I'm doing, I'm just saying pull in shad cn. It's using Tailwind. It's a TypeScript project. I'm using Tanstack start for a lot of things. Or if I just need plain React, I'll just do like the Vite template. But but it's like when there's stuff like I know what I'm talking about and I see it output something, I'm like, okay, well, that's not accessible, or why did you put that there? Or when I generally don't know something, I'm like, can you explain this like pattern that you or this function? Like I don't understand what it's doing, or because like we use Go at work for like our core product is essentially all Go except for the front end stuff is React. So like I'm not a Go expert, and like I mean I can follow the code, but like there's some stuff like for example, like when I mean I read up on some of this stuff, but there's like I'm still not like super proficient with like Go routines and stuff. So I'm and like uh there's it's actually a really nice pattern. They have this defer that you can run on it's kind of like I dispose in like C sharp, I disposable. It's it's the same kind of idea, but like you can define this defer. So you basically like I don't know, say you opened up a database connection, you can
Mhm.
say defer s dot close or like db dot close right away, and it looks weird when you're looking at the code because like it looks like it's synchronous. So like initially I'm like, oh, I guess it's gonna fire, and I thought defer was like async await or something, and
Uh-huh.
it's not so much that. It's just like you define that cleanup call right away, and then whenever the DB is finished or if there's a crash, it just knows like before this entire function exits, run that. And like there was just like some things it's just not knowing the language. Others were like I remember when I worked with my old coworker John McBride, he knows Go pretty well, and like I was using AI back in this was when we're at open source, so this was still in 2024. It wasn't as good as it is today, but like he's like this is really good Go code, but it's old Go code. He's like make sure that you're using at least version, I think it was like 1.25 at the time for Go. And so like I basically added skills weren't a thing yet either at this point. It's which is wild to think like skills are still very new, but like but it was custom instructions that I had that I was just passing along.
Mhm.
So I just said like make sure that this is using go 1.25 or later, and just like a few things, like to your point about like you have your experience, but also as you learn things as you go along, you can kind of add those to the bucket too, so like now I don't have to think about that. I didn't know that tests and Go weren't run in parallel by default. So because like if you use vtest or something, they just do them in parallel. So I had to add a rule just to say ensure that tests are always run in parallel, because I just made a bad assumption that they ran in parallel by default. So anyways, like my point is it's just like you learn as you go, and I've been now that like skills are used heavily too. I just I just keep adding to the skill or refine them as I go along, so that I don't get tripped up the next time, and it's one less thing to
Mhm.
worry about. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been, you know, it's interesting. I've been having a lot of fun with AI, which I'm sure you have too. But there's also that anxiety of there's just so much changing, and like a lot of times it's in your best interest to really know what's changed versus like I can wait a few months, because like after a few months it might be like, oh yeah, no, like 20 billion things changed.
That's true. I think everyone is going through it, right? I mean, most people I speak to, I think they have this thing like, oh, oh, I haven't even tried this model, and there is a new model available,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, what's the difference? Like, I mean, I'm not sure about others, but I mean, whenever like for example, I got really comfortable using Opus 4.6. It feels like,
Mhm.
it can read my mind basically because I'm way comfortable like giving instructions to Opus 4.6 and it understands what I mean. And I tried doing it with GPT 5.5 and 5.4 and it was not working. So I'm not sure like how often people actually move to different models,
Mhm.
but I don't do that really often. I tried, of course, like before Opus 4.6, like Sonnet was there. I last year, right? So when I was actually at Ceylon, so we started using GitHub Copilot, and then we were using Cursor as well.
Okay.
And Cursor, I gave a try. I didn't like it. I was like, okay, no, I really like VS Code. Basically, I like to see my code. That was back in 25, of course. People were not talking about you should not read your code if you didn't got the context. Like there is a war, literally war going on. Like read the
Yeah.
code. So I was reading that. I was reading the code, so I loved VS Code. And then I could use Sonnet, but I think that time Sonnet was still not the best model, I would say. I mean, I was using it for some tasks, but I was still writing a lot of code. I was doing some documentation with Gemini. I feel really sad, like seeing Gemini. They don't have any stable model yet.
Mm.
Things work. Like if I choose a model, things work for some time, then starts breaking. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I hope they come up with some strong model, which can be like you can put in the same category where you talk about Opus
Yeah.
4.6 or Fable or maybe uh, now GPT 4.6. Oh, it
Yeah.
just came before our stream. See,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
haven't used the Gemini models really, or is it called? It's all anti gravity now, or is anti gravity the IDE? I can't remember.
the
Um,
gravity is the IDE and the CLI.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's it. They renamed the CLI. That's right. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I used Gemini Flash for a little bit at one point, but I
Mm,
honestly haven't really done much with the models from Google. Um, I've typically been, I'd say, we have like a Claude team subscription at work, so that's typically what I'm in. And so I gave Fable a go, like when they had it open there at the beginning, and it is pretty good for some things. I didn't. I only started near the end. People were saying use Fable like an orchestrator and have it outsourced to others. So like I was actually, this was like a couple days ago, but I was getting Fable to do work and then orchestrate, and then I could say something like, you know, I don't know if I had to be that explicit, but I said, connect to Devin via ACP and go do the work with Devin or with Copilot, et cetera, and stuff. So, um, but I haven't dug deep into Fable, but typically I'm in like, yeah, usually Sonnet or Opus. Um, for my OpenClaw, I use my ChatGPT subscription, so I'm using typically GPT 5.5 there, and then also just been messing around with uh, VS Code as well. It's like kind of like I've got my hands in all the honey jars or whatever, but it's just I don't know. It's also the thing is like these things are going to get a lot more expensive at some point. I don't know when the subsidies are going to stop, but like some have already we're kind of starting to see those cracks already. So like I don't know. It's gonna be interesting because like I think it's been great with things being subsidized to really mess around a lot with this stuff, but I think what's gonna happen is and like people have AI gateways now. There's like whether that's for sale gateway or like open router and like
Mhm,
I think Shopify has a custom one, but like, you know, not only will it be model selection, but it'll also be like, for FinOps, in terms of like, hey Santosh, you hit your quota, or you're spending too much or you're not spending enough. I don't know. I don't think that not spending enough is a thing right now because there was all those token leaderboards and those kind of got token shamed, or I don't know what the proper term is, but
I mean, I think the Gemini models are still so cheap. They, I mean, I'm using it for one of my projects, side project, commitstory.io,
okay.
which you can actually just go ahead and give it a try. You just need to enter your username and you can generate a story. So there is a tab called Generate Story, which actually calls Gemini API, and yeah, it's very cheap. I mean, I haven't spent like even $1 so far. I mean, it's
Oh,
not like
really? Wow.
yeah. I mean, before I decided to stop in between because because of some other things, but now I started it again. Maybe there are a few requests, but not even $1.
Okay.
I'm using their image generation model as well as text generation, right? So both.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, it's very cheap. But the only problem is like you know uh, they keep renaming things. So
Okay.
I had to stop it because they renamed the model and then the site stopped working.
Okay.
So and then I had no time to go ahead and fix it. So I was like, okay, let's leave it for now. And then I went again. I asked like, oh, I asked Opus 4.2, 4.6 to see like, oh, which is the stable model now. So it
Mhm.
I just asked it to go ahead and check the documents, and then it went to the document, said, oh, the models are renamed now. So this is the model you should be using, and then yeah, I ended up fixing it again. So that's
Yeah.
frustrating. Like, I mean, of course, you cannot do that. Like, I mean, if you're doing that, like, it means either you are not like, you know, uh, you're not serious about your customers, or no one is using it in production.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows what the answer is, but or maybe both. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, it's that said, I found Nano Banana to be really good for images actually when I have used it. But
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, Nano Banana is nice. I mean, I was using Nano Banana only, but they renamed the model again.
Okay, I didn't
So,
know they renamed that too.
yeah, yeah, they keep doing that. So, because I do both, right? So I generate image and text, and both stopped working. So,
Okay. Yeah, it's I know naming's hard, but also changing naming is or like have a migration path, I think. I think somebody was saying like when it switched to anti-gravity, the CLI name, it caused all kinds of
mhm.
problems. There was no migration path. So um, but
Um, well, you still know the Angular JS to Angular story, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a big tear off the band-aid for yeah, for folks who might be newer to the industry. Like I remember like most of my experience with Angular was Angular 1.4.3, I think. So this was like with the digest, this is pre-TypeScript. And then Angular is the project, I can't remember because like I'm not in the community really, but is the project these days called Angular and the old one is referred to as Angular JS? I can't remember. I know there's a naming difference. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the old one is Angular JS, which is dead by now. I mean,
Okay.
they stopped it in 2021. And so AngularJS is basically dead. It is still being used in production, but I think there is a separate company. I'm not sure like if you have heard about Hero Devs, but
Okay.
it's a company which gives you extended support for projects which are dead or not
Okay.
supported officially by anyone. So they are managing it. If you go to AngularJS website, you will find it because they have a tie-up with Angular team or maybe with Google.
Okay.
They do it for Node.js as well. I think if your company relies on any older Node.js version which is not being supported by Node.js, you can just buy a
Okay.
subscription from them or whatever support from them. And the Angular is new one. But the biggest confusion what happened was when they started publishing Angular JS on Angular, or sorry, on NPM, the
Hmm.
package name was Angular.
Okay. Yeah.
And people were like, oh, Angular, and then you are creating something you called Angular. I mean, the whole naming thing was like a mess, I would say.
Yeah.
And then there was no migration path, of course, as we mentioned.
Yeah. That said, I mean, it was a very smart move for them to move to TypeScript, and even if it was a painful transition for some people, because like, I mean, TypeScript is kind of king right these days. I mean, if you're doing any kind of front end or even back end in Node, or whether it's Bun or workers, whatever you're using, Dino, I mean, it's just like, it's kind of table stakes now. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I know there's still some JavaScript purists, and the thing too is you can still do like the JS doc comments if you want, if you want to stick to literal pure JS. But
Mhm.
I kind of think at this point TypeScript is one, and also like LLMs really like TypeScript, and it's good with structure and types, right? So it definitely helps. And there's like, I know like a lot of stuff with agentic is Python, but like there's a lot more stuff now with, I mean, we're biased because we've done a lot of front end dev and like full stack Node and stuff, or JS, but like I think TypeScript is kind of giving a bit of a run for the money in like agentic land. So and it's
I've seen so many agentic framework being created with TypeScript. For example, Mastra is one, right? I think they have
yeah,
billions
yeah,
of downloads, and then it's TypeScript based. I think I knew few more because I go through the repositories which are using CodeRabbit, and there are so many which are
yeah.
built using TypeScript, and they support they are TypeScript first agentic framework. So
Yeah, like even the harness pi.dev, I'll drop a
Mhm.
link to that. But that's written in TypeScript. So like basically, you know, there's a lot of things that use pi under the hood. So there's like OpenClaw is one of the more famous ones that uses pi under the hood. There's I'm pretty sure it's pronounced flu, but Fred K. Schott, who co-created Astro,
I
uh, they're over at Cloudflare now, but Flu is it's another it's another agentic harness that under the hood is using Pi as well, but that's another TypeScript based. So yeah, it's interesting to see. And then I guess I don't know, like I'm less in the Rust world and stuff, but like Rust is like good with types too, and like I don't know how much it's used. I know because I was at the AWS community in Montreal, and there's forget his last name, but Darko. He works for AWS, and he's a big fan of Rust. So he was like, obviously promoting Rust in a fun way, but he's like, yeah, write all your MCPs in Rust. So it's like, I don't know. I guess the main theme, or through line is types are definitely helpful in the age of agentic. Is what I'm seeing pretty much. And I mean, types in general are good. It's like you can you know the shape of stuff. I'm saying the obvious, I know, but like I just remember when, because like we both did C sharp, and like C sharp, sorry, TypeScript is obviously heavily influenced by C sharp, right? Like Anders created both languages, but like I don't know about you, but like I know like people starting off with TypeScript, they get kind of lost a bit with like generics and stuff. But like I remember like because like, I started doing TypeScript in 2015, and I remember like even the generics, like because I had done C sharp already, it's like there was no like, oh, what's going on here? It's like I knew immediately what's happening, you know what I mean? So like the learning curve was kind of non-existent for TypeScript. There was still things you had to learn because like it's basically accommodating the JavaScript language, you know, so that's why there's some
Mhm.
weird things in TypeScript, but it's because of JavaScript. But yeah.
No,
Anyways,
true,
I
true.
don't know.
I mean, I remember like because I started in 2016, I think, so 2017. So when Angular 4 came in, and my
Okay, yeah,
first introduction to TypeScript was because of Angular. So I was like, oh wow, this looks so familiar. Like I was writing .NET for years, and then, this looks like .NET. But
yeah,
when I started teaching it, I started teaching Angular, and I realized, oh, a lot of people are actually not aware of what type language is. And I was like,
mhm,
maybe it's a, everyone knows this, like, because few things you just assume, right? And
mhm,
me thinking that, oh, probably everyone knows about typed language was actually not true.
yeah,
People like who were writing JavaScript or maybe mostly heavily front end focused, they had no idea about
mhm,
what it means. And then I realized, oh, okay, so this those people exist. So then I had to teach like them in a different way.
yeah,
So, but yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I get your point.
yeah. And like even backend devs that were doing like Rails or Ruby or Python, there was no types in there either. I think Rails has optional types now, I think, and
Mhm.
so does Python. But like, so like, unless you had done something like C sharp or Java or
Mm,
any kind of compiled language too, because like I still remember too, like when they're saying, oh, I can press F2 and I can refactor the name, and it's like all these things that have been in, like, because I still think Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code, but Visual Studio is hands down, like it's specific to .NET and Microsoft stuff, but it's still, in terms of usability and developer experience, it's like the best thing. I haven't used it in years because I just don't do .NET now, but you know just super rich, really well done IDE. It's unfortunate. I know there was like I think it was Brandon Minnick. He used to work on the what's what's that project called? There was like WPF, and then there was like Silverlight,
Correct.
but yeah, the not the Mono project, but there was something else after. It's like a Hawaiian name in .NET. I forget what it's called. I want to say Oha or Oahu, or what the heck's
Yeah.
it called? Anyways, there's some Hawaiian like name for something in .NET, but like he was basically saying like there was the Mono project, which was the port from what's his name, Miguel Icaza, I think. So he ported the the .NET framework to Linux with the Mono project, and that was like how you could run .NET in Linux at one point, and then they made Visual Studio for Mac, which was like based off of that, and it got phased out at some point. I forget when, like a couple of years ago, but
I,
anyways, it just, like, it was such a great developer experience. It's just unfortunate that it's only in the Windows and like .NET specific. I mean, it's not just for .NET, because you could obviously do front end stuff in there as well. But I don't know. It'd be nice to see that IDE elsewhere, I guess.
I mean, that's definitely so true because I know I keep talking about old times with my friends, and I like, there was a time I used to actually run multiple Visual Studio
Yeah,
with debugger in a 4 GB or 8 GB RAM laptop, and it used to work all fine. Uh, and I never used to use mouse, right?
hmm,
I mean, I'm sure most of the .NET developers in back in the days, the keyboard shortcuts were so good. It was like just, you never need a mouse. All these controls are like you press as F5 and then it's okay, it's running, right? The debugger
yeah,
is on. You just start debugging your code base. And then I remember like when I start using Visual Studio Code, now
yeah,
uh, the name most people are familiar with, I was like, oh, where is my F5? Where is my F2?
yeah,
How do
yeah,
I
yeah,
step in, step out? And I was like, okay, this is different thing altogether. So Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, Visual Studio was amazing. I mean, still it might be, but as yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we are not using it for a long time.
yeah. That said, Visual Studio Code's pretty solid, and obviously other people think so because they've forked it, like Cursor and like Devin, and like I think pretty much any kind of new ID that comes. I think even Kiro is VS Code based. I haven't used Kiro, but that's the AWS one. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's but yeah, it's just a good experience, like that whole editor in VS Code, like the Monaco editor and stuff. But
Mhm.
anyways, I digress. But yeah, I guess we're kind of naturally covering all the things we put in your title here, but like we talked code review and AI changing tech pretty much. But uh, I guess in terms of community, like I mean, you kind of touched on it. Like we've seen each other at conferences. We're part of other programs like the GitHub Stars and like at Microsoft MVPs and stuff. But I guess like how are you finding community these days? Because like some people say like I don't think community is dead personally, but I hear some people just thinking, oh, it's not like it used to be and stuff, and like these are just like I don't have like literal people's names to mention or anything. It's just like I don't know. I think things have changed, but I think it's still important for sure. Like you need a community around your products, and like it's just I don't know. Maybe things have changed a bit, but like how are you finding it?
Look, I think it goes on the both sides, right? I think we covered one side where we are not happy that more and more projects are closing down the doors and saying, "Hey, we will not take your PR." But we have to also think about the other side that all the major projects, if you see, they're like one or two maintainers. Best case, right? Two is I'm
Yeah.
talking best case, like, but most cases like there is only one maintainer. I was talking to Artem today from mock service worker, and I had the same question to him, like, you know, how people can help you in case you are doing so much work. And he was like, oh, what, I decided to actually close down the project and said, hey, please don't open a PR directly, because now
Yeah.
he needs to be strict, because there are people who just wants to use AI, and because it's free or
Yeah.
whatever. Free, someone is paying for it, but they think it's cheap. And now we all know the code is cheap. But
Mhm.
if you go to open source, writing code or adding a new code to open source is not a problem. I think it applies to the same. I think it applies to enterprise as
Yeah.
well. Writing code is not a problem. Maintaining it is, you know, the first question any experienced engineer would ask you, like, oh, you know what, you're bringing this new package, but who is going to maintain it?
Yeah.
And same applies. So I think I hear that point of view as well. When I speak to maintainers, they're like, oh, we are getting like hell ton of PRs. Of course, we are not we are understaffed, and that's why now all this new controls are coming into GitHub, where they can restrict like how many PRs a person can open, how
Mhm.
many do you want to allow external contributors or not. I think this
Yeah.
all started with Michel Hashimoto. He started with his own project, saying, what, I want to just have the trusted list of, or
Mhm.
we call it vouch list,
Yeah.
where you can vouch for somebody. For example, if I contributed to the project, I can say, hey, Nick is a nice person, I vouch for him, and if Nick opens a PR, it will be reviewed. And
Yeah.
I think that kicked off the entire conversation. People started figuring out different ways to control those things. Uh, but yeah, they need a lot of funding. I think open source maintainers are still burned out with all
Yeah.
this change with the AI. And whenever I talk to them, I try to see their point of view, like what they want to do. I'm still angry. Like there are some projects who closed down the door, but I try to
Yeah.
understand like why they are doing this. See like how we can help them. Of course, as I said, like CodeRabbit is investing $1 million. So sometimes the problem is money. Like a lot of maintainers are very vocal about it, saying, "Hey,
Mhm.
if your company is using my product, my open source projects, just make sure or ask them to at least sponsor the project so I can actually continue working on it." It's not
Yeah.
because they need money, right? Because they're passionate about the product, or passionate about the project.
Yeah.
It's their right uh, at the end. So they feel that connection, that they don't want to drop this project just because now there are just hundreds of spam PRs, or maybe they don't have enough budget. But there are people
Yeah,
who don't ask for anything. Like there are people who are still like they might need more funding, but they're like, oh, how do I do that? Like how do I ask people to sponsor my project or sponsor myself?
yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, that's again an issue, and now that's how I think one thing I'm not sure. Like, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but uh, I think Node or JavaScript ecosystem was the first, system where anyone can just come and start a new package or publish a new
Yeah,
package, and suddenly it has million downloads. We both come from .NET. We never saw that. Like, I mean, now it's
yeah,
open source, of course, but I haven't seen a .NET project with maybe 100K stars, or maybe I'm not aware of it, but
yeah,
it's very JavaScript.
yeah. I think JavaScript and Python, and it's like, yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, this is a side note, but like, I was always a fan of JavaScript, and like a part of the reason why I left the .NET ecosystem was not because C Sharp wasn't good and stuff. It was at the time I really wanted to get involved in open source, and like you mentioned, .NET wasn't open source at that point, and so like I just naturally, because I was a big fan of JavaScript, I started contributing some React projects, and then got into the Node.js ecosystem, and that's been open source for like forever. So like, you know, I think that's why there was, and also like the thing with JavaScript too is it's ubiquitous, right? It's like it's in the browser. It's probably never going to be out of the browser. There's so many places where it can be, that I think that's also part of like the reason for the explosion. But also the standard library in JavaScript at the time wasn't really that good. I think it's getting better. Like we have like temporal dates now, which is, took forever. But like there's a reason why there was like a moment JS. There's a reason why Lodash, or what's the other one of it called? I forget. There was two packages. There was Lodash and something else. They kind of were
Understood.
underscore JS. Yeah, yeah. But like those packages, and those packages are still used, but like they came about because none of that stuff was in the core library, in the standard library, and like nowadays a lot of that stuff is in the standard library, but there's still not all that stuff. So like I think that's also what helped with like the explosion of packages, because like if you look at something like .NET or Java, or probably Rust too now. I don't know. I'm less well versed about Rust, but like the standard libraries in like C in .NET and in like Java are pretty solid. Same with Go. So there's I think yeah, I think that's the reason why we saw such an explosion. And also I think the fact that, like, getting back to what I was saying about like JavaScript's in the browser, it was a little more approachable potentially. Like I think that's one reason. I can literally open up Notepad. Like that's how I started to learn JavaScript, was just literally in
Mm.
Notepad. So like you don't need a compiler, you don't need you can just literally open up a web page. Obviously there's bundlers and stuff now, like ESBuild, Vite, etc., etc. But like I think that's another reason. And I'll also, I don't know. I think React helped there too. Like that got things really, people excited about JavaScript too. I'm not knocking Angular here. It's just like that's just was my experience. Um, you know. Um, but yeah, but to your point about like the funding and stuff, it's still a real issue. Like I remember Chad Whitaker, who had a great conversation with him when he was over at Sentry. He was working on their OSS initiative. The name's escaping me, but like Century had these really great billboards. Like if you ended up in like San Francisco, yeah, it's like the evil CEO not paying for open source kind of billboards and stuff. And but it is pretty wild. Like if you think about it, right? Like if like you wrote this super popular package that like literally Microsoft, Google, and people use, like even I don't know, like if you're a solo dev on that thing, like even Google dropping like 50 grand or 100 grand is nothing, right? You know, so it's like, I don't know, but that's a whole other can of worms, right? Like that's a whole discussion on its own. But it's like, I don't know. I think people, just abuse that still, and then you obviously have entitled people or be like, hey, this doesn't do what I wanted to do or fix my bug, it's like, and I remember like when I used to get stuff like that, sometimes I'd be sarcastic and be like, looking forward to your PR. It's
Yeah.
but yeah, anyways.
Yeah. I
Very
mean,
cool.
yeah. So we joined open source pledge as well this year. After I joined CodeRapid.
Oh,
So
that's
open
it.
source
Open
pledge.
source pledge. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, open source pledge. Yeah. So I think CodeRapid is still one of the companies who is paying close to 12 to 15,000 now. I think our open source funding has increased. So I think more than 12,000 per developer. I mean, so the way open source pledge works is you have to have minimum $2,000 per developer. The developers in your company, not the developers you're sponsoring. So if you sponsor more than $2,000 per developer, you can actually join open source pledge.
Okay.
And we were already doing more than 10, 12K actually when I joined. So we are one of the biggest supporters so far.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, it's a good initiative. It's kind of like a bit of a it's kind of funny because like you kind of guilt trip people into doing it, but in a good way. Like, hey, you're this big corporation, you should be donating money. But I think the funny thing for me is like, say, like, I'm just making this up, but like, say you are that evil CEO, right? Like, from a marketing perspective, even just doing that makes your company look better, even if you're like, even if your motivation is I'm gonna fund some open source stuff because we can look good and then make more money. You know what I mean? Like that's still a win, right? So
Yeah, so one thing which I've of course heard from a lot of people is like getting money from companies like Microsoft, Google is not that easy.
mhm.
Even though they have open source funding, whatever, but it's not easy getting money from them. So, but yeah, everyone can do something, right? I mean, they still pay developers, like they sponsor some projects directly. For example, E18E.dev. If you're not aware, this is a new initiative, not new, but yeah, I mean, maybe a year
Yeah.
old. Uh, It's an initiative from one of the friends from community who is trying to actually, uh, give alternatives to the packages. For example, there are so many packages now, especially in the AI era. Your
Yeah.
agent actually downloads a package which was not maintained for 6 years, and
Okay.
no one knows it because you're not reading code. So this initiative is actually E18E.dev is initiative where uh, you can run the linter. They have a skill file. We are working on MCP. Uh,
Mhm.
so it can tell you, you know what, you have this package XYZ, but you can replace it with ABC, which is maybe which support ESM, which is well maintained, and then you can remove this package. Or maybe it's lighter. For example, the old package is 10 MB, new package is maybe 1 MB.
Mhm.
So that's also a nice initiative. We joined as a sponsor as well for that project.
Nice.
Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, so
That's
there's
cool.
so many initiative coming up. I think we just need to. So this is where I'm more focused on the community part as well, right? So seeing like which maintainers are doing great job,
Mhm.
and go ahead and talk to them, support them.
Yeah.
So
No, that's good. Yeah. No, I shared a link. I'm actually in the E18E Discord. I shared a link to it if folks want to just join there. I'll be honest, I haven't been that active in it. I joined it when I think Patak had suggested it
uh,
from the Nitro and like
yeah,
is is
but
is he on the Nux.js core team? I can't remember, or is he more just like the low level stuff like Nitro and on JS and all that stuff?
he joined. Actually, he was in a CS team. Then they get acquired by Vercel, right? So they got
Oh
acquired by
yeah, that's
Vercel.
right. Yeah.
And then he left. Now he's doing open source full time. So I'm
Okay.
meeting him next week, by the way, in Berlin. So
Oh,
let's
cool.
see. Uh,
Yeah.
I've spoken to him like on call and virtually, but never met him in person. So
Yeah, I've only ever spoken to him in Discord and I think maybe on Blue Sky. So if you see him, I don't know if he'll remember me, but just tell him I say hello.
we can send
Cool.
pictures.
Yeah. I know we're getting close to time there, and I know it's a little later for you where you're at. So I do want you to sleep at some point. um, but I did want to say, well, one, it was great hanging out. Like Santosh said at the beginning, we got to hang out in Germany together for a weekend, which was great, and got to stay at his place. So again, thanks so much for that. Really appreciate it. And yeah, it was a good time. Got to tour around a bit, and I saw some other parts of Germany as well because I was traveling for work. But I'll drop a link again to where folks can find you, Santosh, and also for anybody interested in Code Rabbit as well. I'll drop the link to that too. Yeah, no, it's been great hanging. I'm looking forward to. I guess uh, you're off to some places in Europe right now. Are you heading to? I'm trying to think what conferences we might run into each other. I'm speaking at All Things Open in North Carolina in the States that's in October, I think. But or or maybe we'll see each other at GitHub Universe. That's probably the next logical place. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, listen, it's been great hanging. Thanks everybody for chatting and oh yeah, no problem, Trey. Thanks for catching the live stream. But yeah, everybody else, we'll see you in the next one. I'm traveling a bit. I'm in San Francisco next week, so probably won't have another live stream till probably on this stream at least until August because I'm traveling to a few places for work and then I'll be on vacation a bit. But yeah, we'll definitely have something back here, hopefully in August. And yeah, take care, everybody. Santosh, if you don't mind just staying on for 1 sec, and everybody else, we'll see you in the next one.
Good night, man.